Hey everyone, welcome to this Facebook Live. This is starting a new series with a new book that I'm covering. It's kind of a continuation from the series we did last week on the 7 Pillars of Health with Dr. Don Colbert. And he referenced, in yesterday's session, we covered stress as being a problem with your health. And he referenced a book that he has written called Stress Less, and I have it on my Kindle if you guys can see it. I know it goes, okay, of course it went away. But on my Kindle here. So anyway, it's called Stress Less by Dr. Don Colbert. And so it goes into more detail than what we were discussing yesterday. We started going into forgiveness, forgiving other people and forgiving ourselves. I didn't really go in too much in depth on it, but he has a chapter here that really dives into it quite a bit more, and it's called Dealing with Offense. And offense, it's kind of like holding a grudge. When someone does something that you perceive, or maybe it was real, that it wasn't called for, it was unjust, and it was hurtful. And it was something we didn't want to have happen. We didn't sign up for that. So and then you can tell because we start dealing with it by, it's all we think about. We think about it. Why did they do this? Why did this happen? Maybe it's because I said this, or, they didn't understand, or, all these things going back and forth in your head. And then, of course, people come by and you tell somebody about it and you talk about it. And that's where it's taking you into overload. You're getting too stressed, and it's causing a lot of hostility and anger. And in fact, that hostility and anger you get from having offense, it's 5 times more likely to cause you heart disease. And plus, you're just plain not enjoying your life. And we want to definitely enjoy. I do. However, and I know you do too. But, really, to give yourself a break, we do get easily offended in our culture, and it's kind of promoted. We can pick it up from our parents, grandparents, just things we watch as we're growing up. And, it's also our culture. There's a lot of violence in movies. You can't turn on TV without, seeing people getting shot and everything, and we become desensitized to it. And so just there's just so much out there in the culture, and from the Bible, Jesus said that offense will come. So and that's where we get wounded. We're wounded either physically or emotionally, and now some offenses are accidental. Maybe somebody accidentally brushes up against you, and they weren't looking and they didn't mean to do it. And some offenses are our perception. And that can be from anything, just how we're wired, or just things we need to change in ourselves and how we perceive. It may be accidental too. But in those cases, we're really offending ourselves. And, the other person, they didn't really do it. It's just how we perceive it. And then Jesus, he also said that same thing about offense. He said, woe unto you causing it. So, woe unto you if you're doing it to yourself. And it's like, yeah, you will feel some woes when you're taking offense. So, and one thing is we can avoid developing a habit of taking offense. And it can be a habit, and in his book, he likens it the Pavlov's experiments. I think we all have heard of the dogs with the bell ringing, and then they start salivating. So some people can become so conditioned to it. It's like even if someone compliments you, it's like, what are you trying to say? You become offended and you don't trust it. So it becomes a habit. We can learn to deal with as well as the intentional offenses. And those are when, and they do happen, and that's, someone tells a lie about you and tells other people, and they're trying to, get everybody on their side against you, and you didn't even do anything, or maybe you did do something, but anyway, the intent is to cause harm, but most cases it's unintentional. Hopefully these things don't happen that often, but it's happened to me before. But it's verbal, people saying things to you that aren't nice, and but one thing you don't want to do is take that offense and then get angry. That is just such our knee-jerk reaction, is to get angry and to retaliate and tell them something and put them in their place. But that's, so then you're doing double injustice. They've done something against you, and then now you've got this anger and this retaliation out there that can kind of come back on you too. And but just the thing to remember is, if you try to keep your peace, whatever someone else has done, it's going to come back on them. The old saying of what goes around comes around, but you will know if typically these things, there's a lie involved or some sort of falseness involved in it. So just remember, just let go of it and let God deal with these things. Let God, and he may not deal with this the way you would deal with it. You may want him to, God, go get him. And he may know there's some other underlying issues with this person that he needs to deal with on them. So you let him take care of it, and he can really take care of it. But also, one other way, when you do have an offense and you're trying to deal with it, in his book, Dr. Colbert, he says, try to think of it as like he specifically says a UPS truck coming up in your driveway with a box, and you take the box and you can tell it's got rattlesnakes in it. What are you going to do? You're going to hand it back to the UPS guy, the guy in brown. You're going to hand it back to him, right? And you're not going to take it. You're not going to open it and look at and play with snakes and, get bitten, so you're going to hand it back. So try to think of it as like a box of rattlesnakes and just get rid of it and just say, no, I'm not taking it. So, yeah, you don't want to take that box of rattlesnakes and, and you don't want to just keep feeding on it and thinking about it and talking about it, and because that's what keeps that stress alive. So, and then your next step is you want to forgive people, and forgive them first, because forgive and you shall be forgiven. And this one lady, she's kind of a preacher, I guess, Joyce Meyer, you may have heard of her. She says unforgiveness, it's like drinking poison and wishing someone else would die. So, then that's what you're doing. You're drinking poison and it's hurting you. And it doesn't mean that the other person is off the hook. God still has to deal with them on what they did, and it no means, lets them off the hook, but, you trust him to deal with them. So, and just remember, a lot of it's perceived and just in your perception and not necessarily a wrong, but, and also forgiveness, it's not the same as trust. You can forgive without necessarily trusting someone, and maybe you shouldn't, because trust takes time initially, but also rebuilding trust also takes time as well. So don't feel like you have to jump out and go trust someone. And we also need to forgive ourselves, because we can do wrong to ourselves or do the wrong thing, and then we're dealing with that ourselves. So anyway, that's what I wanted to cover. I wanted to keep it kind of quick. And this is a pretty deep book. I wasn't expecting, I thought it would be a little more light and chipper, but it really drove home a lot of facts for me. And I was thinking, oh boy, what did I get myself into covering this book for everyone this week? So, but it's really, really good. Hit home a lot of points, and I'll be covering some more topics the coming weeks. So I appreciate you guys watching and listening, and leave any comments if you'd like. We can follow up later, and I thank you so much for watching. You guys have a great evening. Good night.